my gosh. Hi there. I know it's a lot. Today, I'm giving you some book recommendations. Come on in. Let's get started. Welcome. I'm Dr. Tracy Dickens. If you're new here, I'm so glad you joined us. And if you've been around for a while, I'm so glad you came back, and I hope you keep coming back. Today, I've got book recommendations for you. I group them by the topics that I spend the most time talking with clients about in my sessions. There's a mixture of the books. Some of them are straight good old-fashioned science, and then some of them are faith-based. As a psychologist who was trained at a Christian university for part of her education, and just as a Christ follower, I'm a strong believer that to get really deep down in your marrow's good healing, you need to incorporate your faith. So you can choose if you want to take the faith-based approach, or if you want to take the science approach, or if you want to do a mixture of both like I do. Before we get going, here's the deal. These books are meant to be just a tool in a tool bag. They're not meant to be the thing that does the healing. They're meant to help you along the way. It's kind of like me thinking I can use this hammer and I can build an entire house with just this hammer. That's not possible. I can't do it. I need other tools. And I say that because self-help is such a big industry right now. And a lot of times we don't really know how to interact with self-help or books that are designed to help us grow and develop. This is just one part of discovering your potential and your purpose. So you don't want to get too invested in like, this is the book that's going to give you the answers. This is a book that's going to give you some of the answers, but you're going to need other tools. So it can't just be reading a book. And even in the reading the book, change takes time, man. It really does take time. It's a daily intentionality and commitment to it. And so when you're looking at the books, figuring out, okay, what in this book can I actually apply to my life and do it strategically each day until I really see it come full bloom. Okay, now enough about that. Let's get going to the first tool. The first grouping of books really tackles depression and anxiety. It gets at how our thinking can fuel anxiety and depression. This first book, I mean, really has been on my career journey. It was the first book when really first intervention I learned how to use as a budding psychologist. And I continue to use it because it's just good old-fashioned OG quality stuff. And that's Mind Over Mood. And this book just really breaks down cognitive behavior therapy. I mean, it looks at, what do you think? And how does your thinking impact your mood and your behaviors? And how can we start to change some of that thinking so you can start to behave differently and you can start to feel differently and be more active in your life? It has examples that you can use. It has worksheets, it has quizzes to really make sure that you know the difference between, like this one here is about, can you identify the difference between situation, mood, and thought? And you think, yeah, sure I can. Well, can you? Because some people can't. So here you go. So the next one is also an OG for me. All these old books. I do have a recent one, I promise. This is Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. And I have the book and I have the workbook. And this also works on thinking, but it takes a faith-based approach. So she pulls in scripture and looks at what God says about the things we're supposed to think about and how to think about those things and how our thinking can lead us astray. Here's just a little bit so you kind of get an idea of what you're getting into. You cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. Woo! Someone turn the heat on in here. That's good stuff right there. Okay, so that is tool number 2. Here's another faith-based book, and this one is more recent. Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. And it's also faith-based, but it's also science. I mean, hardcore science. Like, I love learning about the brain. I am a brain nerd, y'all. Like, if it's about the brain, I'm probably going to read it. And there were times in here I was like, I have no idea what she's saying right now. What? But it's good. And I got to tell you, when you get to the back, so you figure out how to switch on your brain, it's CBT. And she's named it something different because she's a neuroscientist, but it is essentially CBT. But she brings together the faith and the science of it and brings it together really nicely. So if you're a person who wants to know the science and you also want to know the faith and you want interventions that can help you kind of pull it all together, this is definitely the book for you. And I'll read a little excerpt. The debate in science is between the mind being what the brain does versus the brain doing the biting of the mind. The position you adopt will impact how you view free will and choice. The next topic that I spend a lot of time talking about is trauma. Trauma is something that affects all of us. Either we have experienced trauma or we know somebody who has experienced trauma. The books I recommend the most, which probably a lot of you have heard about this one, is The Body Keeps the Score. And this book is kind of your one-stop shop for trauma. It talks about kind of the history of our understanding of trauma, the neuroscience behind trauma, how it affects our body and our mind and the culture and our health. It looks at EMDR, it looks at CBT. I mean, you name an intervention, yoga, it talks about it and what it does and what that intervention does on the mind and how that helps us heal. One little warning, the science part is very science. If you're a person who loves science-heavy books, or maybe you don't, but you do want to know more about the interventions that you can try to heal from your trauma, or a family member help them with their trauma, this is definitely the book for you. And let me give you a little bit of a tidbit. Trauma robs you of the feeling that you are in charge of yourself, of what I call self-leadership in the chapters to come. The challenge of recovery is to reestablish ownership of your body and your mind, of yourself. Right? The second book that I do not have, but was an excellent read, is What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Yes, you heard right, Oprah Winfrey. I know, right? Dr. Perry is the doctor who put childhood trauma on our awareness. When I was doing work with children and family, I knew his work extensively. He is the OG of childhood trauma. And because he works with children, he has a great way of explaining dense scientific information in a very easy to understand and palatable way. And Oprah Winfrey adds a great conversation and questions and just a poetic beauty in the conversation that the two of them share about trauma and how to develop resiliency and how to heal and how to look at people that are struggling with trauma in a different way. The next book about trauma is about grief. And a lot of times we don't think about grief as being a trauma, but absolutely it is. So the book that I recommend for that is Finding Meaning. This book is just a really great compass in helping people navigate grief. A little sample so you know what you're getting yourself into. Grieving mind finds no hope after loss, but when you're ready to hope again, you will be able to find it. Bad days don't have to be your eternal destiny. That doesn't mean your grief will get smaller over time. It means that you must get bigger. And as the saying goes, no mud, no lotus. Finding Grief by David Kessler. And I will also say that David Kessler has an amazing website that I'm going to link down below. I mean, you can go there and you can get worksheets and resources. He has online groups. He has education groups. I mean, really just such a wealth of information. So look down below. The next group is about perfectionism, rejection, kind of learning how to accept ourselves and our imperfections and our quirks. And This book, I gave a copy of to every one of my colleagues. I have sent it to, I don't know how many clients, and I have dog-eared quite a few pages. I know it's kind of like at this point, I should have just copied the whole thing, right? But it's just that good. For those of you who know me, you know I'm a serious fangirl of Dr. Brené Brown. This is the first book I read from her, The Gifts of Imperfection. It is a small book. I mean, look how thin that is. So you think, oh, like how meaningful can it be? Again, you see how much I have dog-eared there? I mean, seriously. It talks about this drive that we have to be perfect and to belong and to fit in, and how we will never do that if we're trying to fit in whatever culture says we're supposed to be. It's learning how to appreciate who we are, and it's science-based. She is a social worker. She has a doctorate in social work, but she's very relatable. I mean, she can present the science, but make it where you can understand it and see how to apply it. And in the back of the book, she has exercises and things that you can do to apply the different skills. I'm going to read you a little bit so you know what you're getting from Dr. Brown. Belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Okay, there you go. So the next book is faith-based. This is Uninvited by Lisa TerKeurst. And I have read so many books by Lisa TerKeurst. She is really great at unpacking the Bible and making it easy to understand and apply to your life. And this book is about how we all struggle with feeling less than we are, not feeling like we're enough, how all of that impacts not just us from day to day, but also our relationship with God. And if we want to thrive in this world, we have to understand who we are in God. And when we understand our acceptance and love in that relationship, then that overwhelming need we have to belong in the world, it dies down. And so here's a little bit. The mind feasts on what it focuses on. What consumes my thinking will be the making or the breaking of my identity. Okay, Lisa TerKeurst, Uninvited. Liking this so far, push the like button so this can get out to other people. I really appreciate you for pushing the like button. This is the last topic that I'm going to cover in this video. If you would like to see more videos where I cover books and specific symptoms or disorders that they target, then comment down below and I'll be more than happy to do that. The last topic that I talk extensively about with clients is shame. And most of us have no idea how much our behaviors and our thinking and our sense of self is really being oppressed by shame. This belief that we are broken and unlovable and flawed in a way that just can't be fixed. And if people found out about it, they would see that we're unlovable and we would be rejected. I'm a firm believer that 99% of the things that bring clients to my office at the foundation of their behaviors and their distress, it's shame. This book is I Thought It Was Just Me by Brené Brown. She has worksheets that go with it on her website. The book has a lot of great questions. It really looks at shame from a research perspective and how we can develop resiliency. There's no way we can get around experiencing shame. It's the first emotion that's mentioned in the Bible, so it is firmly in our lives. But we can learn how to build resiliency so it doesn't control us, that we can manage it and keep it in its place. And so here's a little excerpt so you know what you're getting yourself into. Often our need to judge others is deeply motivated by our need to evaluate our own abilities, beliefs, and values. Okay, so I thought it was just me. Then we have the soul of shame. And This is the faith-based approach to understanding shame. And so, but it also looks at the science of it too. So it's science and faith put together, which I really just appreciate and love. It really looks at, how shame impacts our brain, how it impacts our body, and how we can unpack that impact so we can get in charge of it, how we can manage it. If you want to know the faith-based aspect of shame and how to deal with it from a biblical perspective and also know the science, this is definitely the book for you. So that is all. If you liked these recommendations, if you have other books that you thought were really great at helping you navigate the choppy waters of your healing, then jot those down below. If you've read some of these books and you have thoughts and comments about them, let me know. I want to create a community where we can all help each other heal. And thanks so much for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate you, and thanks for hanging around to the end of the video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, take care and choose joy. Take care.